Yeah, today I want to talk about parenting. I want to especially talk to parents because in this work of mine of working with young people, especially teenagers and young adults, I find that some of the challenges that these young people are facing are as a result of careless parenting. And I say that with a lot of scarcity, with a lot of caution, and with a lot of respect to parents out there, especially single parents, because you have put in your best, you've put your best foot forward, you've put in all the work, you've done everything that you know basically, and still your teenagers are struggling. And I want to talk about this very quickly. So on to it. So what is parenting? Parenting is basically providing guidance, nurturing and taking care of, bringing into adulthood of an infant. It can be an animal, it can be anybody who takes care of a younger person. You are a parental figure to this person. And these are the things that I want you to know as a parent. Number one is that you are the primary relationship in the lives of this child. What do I mean by a primary relationship? You're the first person who introduces love, kindness, patience, anger, bitterness, all manner of things to this child. You are the introduction. You're the center. You're the gateway to the kind of a person, to shaping this person into the person that they become. You create their identity. You conform them. You mold them. You shape them. You form them into the people that they become in their teen life, in their older life, in the life to come in the future. You are the primary relationship. So as a primary relationship, you have to be very careful with how you handle issues, mental health, emotional health, sexual health, spiritual health, all these things. Now, I want you to give you an example of a study that was done of parents. A group of parents were brought together in a room, and each parent was given a different behavior to conduct within a particular period of time. One of the things that these parents were required to do is to read a book in front of their children. So consistently for weeks, the parents were in the nature of reading books. And there's another group of parents who did not care much about anything other than their businesses and their work. Later, after this study was done, these children were brought into a room and left on their own. You found that the children who grew up with parents who are reading books and studying, that even then they picked the habit of reading books and studying. And the ones who are raised by parents who did not care much about things, they went into life doing things the same way. So number one, as a parent, you are the primary in the life of this child. Primary in every way. So you have to be very careful on how you introduce things to this child. In the previous video, we talked about parents being the primary caregivers of children, the primary interaction, the primary introduction into the life of a child. So after you have known that you are the primary relationship in the life of your children, then what? Then you begin to develop their emotions. Everything revolves around relationship. Your business, your spirituality, everything about you, including the relationship that you have with your home, with yourself, with your health, everything is relationship. Everything is connected to a relationship. So if you want to bring up a teenager that will not give you headache in their teens, I'm not promising they'll not give you a headache, but if you want a lesser headache, not more of a migraine, but more of a normal headache from your teenagers, help them develop their emotions. How do you help your child to develop their emotions? It's okay for a child to cry. As an African community, we are cultured that crying is stigmatized, crying is bad, crying is when you start crying, what is making you cry, you know. We grew up being told these things and we don't allow our children to develop their emotions. It's okay to feel down. It's okay to feel frustrated with a teacher. It's okay to feel frustrated with a fellow child that you're playing with in the compound. It's okay to feel these emotions. Allow your children, boy or girl, hello, boy or girl, allow your children to develop their emotions to the full by letting them know that it's okay. If your child is crying, listen to them, sit them down and say, hey, why are you crying? What has made you to cry? It is okay to feel that way. It is okay to feel frustrated. It is not okay. It is not okay to always be strong and always be tough and always look like. These are the guys who are going out and committing murder because they have been told you can't process emotions. Process your emotions. As the primary caregiver of your child, allow your children to process emotion by letting them feel every kind of emotion, both positive and negative. Every emotion that somebody feels has a purpose, has a reason, has a growth, a progressive growth that comes into that. So this is the second thing we are learning about parenting. We are about to go to the third one. Parents. Yo, how you doing? So we've learned that we are primary caregivers to our children. We are the primary introduction to everything. We've learned about emotion. Now, I want to come to the very important part of parenting, which is discipline. Disciplining a child. Discipline is a distortion of what discipline is, especially as an African community. The way we are cultured, disciplining is beating the senseless out of children. It is calling them names. It is body shaming them. It is shaming them in front of people, and taking out all our frustrations on our children. That is not discipline, parents. Discipline is correction of behavior. Please note, correction of behavior. So how do you correct your child? By letting them know, I have beaten you because you have done 1, 2, 3 things and they are wrong. And why are they wrong? Because as a society, we have agreed that this is unacceptable. Stealing, misbehavior, the way you conduct yourself in front of elderly people. As a community, we have agreed that older people should be respected, should not be answered. You should stand up and allow them to sit because they are older than you. So disciplining is correction of behavior. It's not beating the senselessness out of your children. It is speaking to them. And disciplining does not always have to happen through violence or punishment. Punishment is the most effective way of disciplining, but at the same time, it is the least effective way of disciplining. For example, people who commit crimes, heinous crimes, people who commit murder, people who commit robbery with violence, people who commit all manner of crimes, you would think that because they are prisons and very harsh lifetime sentences that are committed or passed against people who have committed crimes in the previous lifetime, you would think it's a deterrent to the people who commit crimes now. It's really not. Putting the death penalty, putting the hanging penalty, putting the life sentencing, putting the corporal punishment for people who commit crimes is not a deterrent. We still have people who commit crimes to date. People still go out there and kill. People still go out there and steal. People still go out there and do very heinous crimes against other human beings. Why? Because it is the nature of a human being to err. Man is to err. And when you're about to commit a crime or to do a sin, nobody ever thinks about the consequences unless it is premeditated. Because now when premeditation comes in, that's why the consequence is so harsh, because there's premeditation. You had an opportunity to think about the consequences, the positives, the cons and the pros of the situation. But as a child, when you're stealing sugar from your parents, really, you're just being a child. So disciplining goes hand in hand with correction of behavior. And when you want to discipline a child, you must look at these two things. Is this part of growing, or is this just in discipline? If the child is growing, it's part of growth. This child is learning something. This child is just trying to figure out life. This child is just trying to move from point A to point B. Is a part of growing. Then you cannot discipline the same way that you discipline when somebody has intentionally made a mistake. I don't know whether that sentence makes sense, because it makes sense in my head. Let me know in the comment section. So far, we have talked about 3 things about parenting. If you haven't seen any of those things, please go down there and check it out. And let me know in the comment section which are some of the questions that are so hard for you, especially when you're dealing with teenagers and you'd like to pick my brain on it, and I will respond to it. So we've learned about the fact that we are primary caregivers to our children. We've learned about developing emotions in our children. We've learned about disciplining our children. Number 4, which is the most important thing of this parenting series that I'm doing today, and I want us to realize that children are human beings. Children are human beings. The mistake we make as parents is to assume that is a child. That is the biggest mistake you can make as a parent. Let me tell you, the vices that our children pick up growing up, remembering that we are the primary caregivers, we are the primary to these children, they pick them from their parents. Children learn about drugs and substance abuse from their parents. Children are sexually oriented by parents. Children are all spiritual orientation by parents. So don't sit there, and no parent sits down and tells their children, fear God, pray and worship. They watch you and they see what you're doing. No parent sit down and tells their child, nilikuwa nimeficha whiskey pale chini ya meza, unaweza chapa kashot kamoja. No parent does that. But children pick it up from their parents by seeing them do these things. And then when the parents leave, they sneak behind you and they do all the little nasty little things that you don't think they know that you're doing. When they see you kissing, they go try with their cousins and see what happens. Do not assume a child is a child. Children have all the senses that we have. They feel all the things that we feel. And that is why they respond to anger with fear. That is why they respond to love with joy. That is why they respond to the things we give them, the way they respond back unto us. Because they experience these things just like grown-ups. The difference is they are not able to process them the way we as grown-ups process them. So when you're standing there insulting your sister and talking very negatively about your brother in front of your children are picking up on it. So when your brother comes around, they have an attitude, and you start saying, my child does not like strangers, my child does not like men, my child does not. They are picking the cues from you as a parent. Don't underestimate your children. They observe you and they see you. So when you put that at the back of your mind, even as you discipline and as you correct the behavior, when you know that this person has been watching you and has been seeing you, even as you develop their emotions, we've talked about this in the video before, you let them know that, hey, I know I am also a human being. I know I fall short. I know I get angry, and you've seen me get angry. But in this scenario, I'm your parent and I'm trying to correct what you have done. So please, parents, take heed to these things and see you in the next video. Yo, hello. Hey, how are you, parents? Muko salama? So now I want to expand a little bit more on disciplining, parenting and disciplining. I've talked about the introduction of disciplining in a previous video. You can check it out. So I'm going to try to keep this under 3 minutes. I've already wasted 17 seconds. So parts of disciplining, kinds of disciplining. Kind number 1 is called positive disciplining. The best way to illustrate positive disciplining is the one you see with animals, where you give an animal, you dingling carrot, the concept about a dingling carrot. You give the animal a reward after it's done what you have told it. That is positive disciplining. Are you applying this positive disciplining with your child? Number 2 is gentle disciplining. Gentle disciplining is the kind of disciplining where you sit down with a child and you gently explain to them why their behavior is unacceptable and they hear you out. The other type of disciplining is, hi babe, boundary-based disciplining. Boundary-based disciplining, where you discipline the child by letting them know the boundaries, what they can do and what they cannot do. The best example is bedroom boundaries. If your child comes into the house and they want to get into their parents' bedroom, do they knock? Do they request if they can come in? Or do they just come, open the door and jump in and jump into the bed without asking, without knocking? Boundary-based disciplining. Teach your children how to have healthy boundaries by letting them know this line, do not cross this line, and if you need to cross this line, you need permission to cross that line. The other type of disciplining is behavioral modification disciplining. This one we are all familiar with. We have all gone through this kind of disciplining, where there is behavioral modification through punishment, through timeouts, through beating, through shouting, through all manner of ways that people try and attempt to discipline their children. So behavioral modification disciplining involves punishment in most cases, but it can also be a positive discipline. It can also be a gentle discipline where we are looking for to change. Our main goal, our main objective is to change the behavior. To change the behavior from one way to another way. The other one is emotional coaching. Yes, emotional coaching is part of disciplining a child. Remember when I said as a parent, it is your responsibility to teach your children about emotions and to help them develop their emotions because you are the primary in the life of this child. Emotional coaching is a part of disciplining. How do you emotionally coach your child? You allow them to process the emotions that they are feeling. I've talked about this in the previous video. Let them process what they're feeling. If it is anger, if it is they want to cry, if they want to shout, if they want to jump, if they want to be happy, if they want to play, every emotions that they have, allow them to develop that emotion. Which of these types of disciplines stands out for you and why? And which one are you going to adapt in the way that you're bringing up your children? Let me know in the comment section.